When we first started dating, I made sure that we both had had sexual health checks. He intentionally lied to me because he thought I would break up with him if I knew that his previous ex-girlfriend gave him the herpes. I don't know what to do. I thought that this guy was my penguin. Help. I've been dating my boyfriend for about 7 to 8 months. He asked me to help him with some work medical claims. He sent over a pack of documents for me to read to help him write a letter. Now, reading the documents, it said that he has herpes. Now, what I'm getting from this is that obviously he'd had some medical tests done that he needed to obviously have a health check.
Didn't see all the results.
And he didn't realize that this was in the bylines. For context, when we first started dating, I made sure that we both had had sexual health checks. He was pushing to have sex without a condom at the time, something that I had never done before and didn't feel comfortable doing without an STI check prior. The test came back with no issues flagged, so we started having unprotected sex. 7 months later, I read this document. He says initially to me that, he just forgot to tell me. Then ended up telling me that he intentionally lied to me because he thought I would break up with him if I knew. Additional context to this is that his previous ex-girlfriend gave him the herpes and also didn't tell him until 2 months into their dating. I don't know what to do. I thought that this guy was my penguin. Help.
It's a pretty big betrayal.
It's a really complex one, this, because...
Is it? He lied to her face. It's a big thing. An STI can really damage, especially if you don't know, it can damage a woman. That is a conscious choice to lie to your partner about something that could seriously affect her long term. For me, complex what? Because he can't deal with the fact that he has an STI. Complex for him.
Yeah.
But it's complex purely because they're at a point where she, I'm assuming, loves him and she's been with him long term. So it makes it harder. But that's a pretty big betrayal. And I would be wondering if I would want to spend my life with somebody that could make a decision that as a result affects me long term.
I say that it's complex because firstly, it would be, and I have a lot of sympathy for anybody who has to have that conversation up front with a new romantic partner. That is not something that we can skim over. If you are someone who has been recently diagnosed with herpes, please go and listen to the episode we did. It was quite a while ago now, but we had a really amazing episode speaking all around STIs.
We'll link it in the show notes.
We'll link it in the show notes, all around destigmatizing STIs. Also, someone who we had on the podcast, Ellie from Comfortable in My Skin, has really amazing resources around destigmatizing herpes and other STIs. I think that there is a lot of scaremongering around things like herpes. There's a lot of scaremongering around genital warts and everything else. There is this incredible fear around getting it, like it's going to be the worst thing that happens in the world. And so I understand why he was fearful to tell you. I do empathize with that to some degree. I do not empathize with him trying to con you into having unprotected sex with him when he knew that this was something that he deals with without the honesty. That to me is where the deceit comes in. That to me is where I'm like, he went another layer beyond. Also, when you say he got tested and your STI checks all came back fine, my question here is did he show you those checks? Did he actually show you the documentation, or did he tell you that it came back fine? Because that could be another layer of lying and deception. I also know that when it comes to herpes, if you don't have any active outbreaks, I think it can be a tricky one as to how it shows up on medical reporting because so many people carry the herpes simplex virus. But he's told you that he intentionally lied to you because he thought that you were going to break up with him. That to me, even though now you're 7 months deep in this relationship and even though you love him and just because he has herpes doesn't mean that you're ever going to catch it. You can have a healthy and fulfilling relationship with someone and never, ever, ever get that or never, ever catch it from them. But the thing for me that I would struggle with and what I think you're struggling with is the fact that it's changed your perception as to who he is a bit simply because of the lying, not because of the herpes. And he didn't give you the opportunity to make an informed choice or decision for your own body. He made that decision for you and lied to you.
It gives me the ick. I'm so off it. I think it's disgusting. I think it's disgusting behavior, especially the fact that he said, yeah, I actually knew and made the decision consciously to not tell you because I was too worried about what would happen to me, which is you breaking up with me. It sucks that you have it. And again, we have done the episodes on it and I can't imagine the feelings of what that's like to have those conversations. I understand that. Unfortunately, a responsibility does come with that when you have it, and that is to make people aware. The fact that the whole reason that he got herpes in the first place was because somebody misled him. His ex didn't tell him. That's why he's got it. And now he knows what that's like, yet he's still putting that onto you.
I've just had a look at the laws and they're different based on state. So this one is New South Wales because that's where I'm Googling from. Since 2017, people are no longer required to disclose their infection to prospective partners. However, people who are aware that they have an STI must take reasonable precautions to prevent spread of the STI, and a penalty of up to $11,000 and or 6 months jail applies if reasonable precautions are not used.
So I think in this, there's two ways, because I do think it is unreasonable for somebody who has herpes simplex virus that is completely under control to have that conversation with every single one night stand that they're ever going to have. I don't think, and that's why that law has been changed.
Yeah, wear a condom.
It's absolutely unreasonable to think that every single intimate partner that guy ever comes in contact with, he's going to say, hey, I know we just met, but also, 3 years ago I had an outbreak, my ex-girlfriend, and then I haven't had an outbreak since. Like that's not going to happen. But if you are going to get into a long-term relationship with someone and you are trying to get them to have unprotected sex, and a caveat of that is that you go and have an STI check, that's where I draw issue with it. And I probably feel less fearful around this than a lot of people do. And I'll tell you the story. My ex, a guy that I was seeing for quite a long time, he had herpes. I have never caught it. So he was on an antiviral. He was super honest with me. I met him when we were traveling and I absolutely adored him. He is a great, great guy. And he was so honest. He was like, look, I know that this is something that might make you not want to date me. He's like, but I really like you and I really want this to be something, even if it is just that we end up being great friends. This is me. I've never had an outbreak since. I'm on antivirals. I think it is well managed. He's like, but it's always going to be a risk. Anyway, I took the risk. We dated for maybe 3 months. Never, ever, ever did I have an issue with it. So I know it is possible to have a sexual relationship with someone who is managing a herpes virus.
Of course it is. Loads of people do it. That it's not about that. And the key thing that you said, Laura,
But
was he was honest. Exactly.
Absolutely. And if he had not told me that, and then at the end of our relationship, 3 months in, had turned around and been like, ha ha ha, I fucking manipulated into being with me, having an emotional relationship, a connection with me, and now I'm telling you this information, I would feel really differently about him. But I hold so much respect for him and how he managed that, and it didn't change my feelings for him at all.
I think it's interesting when we've been addressing this as an ethical question, but the person who's written this in, you also need to know, depending on what state you're in, it's possible that your partner has actually broken the law because he may not have taken reasonable precautions. And I'm only saying that to validate the fact that this is a big betrayal to the point that it's actually written into law. So don't feel as though you're like, oh my gosh, am I making a big deal about this situation? No, it is a big deal.
But it's also possible, and I'm just throwing this out there, it's also possible he's cheated on you too, and that this is him saying, oh, no, I did have it before, then I just didn't tell you. We don't know, but the core of this question is the deliberate misleading. And I would hate for anyone to listen to this and think that we have any problem with herpes. We do not. And like we said, we have done so many episodes on it. You can have wonderful relationships with STIs. They're so well managed. My upset over this is purely around the deception. That is it, the intentional deception.
Yeah. And I think that is, if anything, the very important take home, because there is enough hysteria that exists around STIs. There is enough fear mongering and so much shame. It's unbelievable the amount of shame that people feel when they do catch an STI. And it's like, you've not done anything wrong except just got a bit unlucky.
Yeah.
No one feels shame when they catch the flu. No one feels shame when they catch anything else. So why is it that you feel so shameful for this? It doesn't mean you're dirty. It doesn't mean that you're promiscuous. It doesn't mean anything. And so I guess for me, I don't want to catastrophize the situation and feed into the narrative that it's something that he should have felt super shameful of. But I do think that he should feel something about the fact that he was trying to manipulate you into having sex without protection when you very clearly communicated that that's something that's important to you. That's the determining factor here for me. And ultimately, I'm not saying that you should break up with him. I'm not saying, you've been together for 8 months now. I'm sure there's other great qualities about this person. But if it does change the way you feel about him in some way, if it gives you the ick because of his lying, if it makes you feel as though he's not truthful, then that's a whole different thing. You can't help the way that you feel about that.